By watching this video, you will learn how to install PHP and Node on your machine, how to sign up for GitHub, how to use Git, how to use SSH, and what Git and SSH actually do. So let's get started. The first thing we're going to do as a preliminary step is to get PHP and Node installed on your local machine. While this seems seemingly unrelated to the title of this video, setting up SSH and Git, the installation of developer tools is actually pretty intertwined and pretty intermixed, and is more relevant than one might think. So, we're going to be using something called Homebrew. Homebrew allows us to easily install open source software, including especially developer tools. And you just have to go to brew.sh, and right on their homepage they have this one-liner you have to paste into terminal. So let's go ahead and copy that. Now we'll just open up terminal. And go ahead and paste it in. Now, it's going to install a bunch of things, and here's where the link that I alluded to is. The Xcode command line tools will be installed. This is needed for Git itself. Git does not come by default on the macOS X installation. And so we need to actually download and install Git. By installing Brew, we get Git, and then we'll also install Node and PHP as well. Essentially, we're running errands and combining trips here, even though we're not going to be using Node and PHP really heavily during pre-work. It's good to have everything installed and ready to go for when you're on the ground in the classroom. So, to install the Xcode command line tools, it does need your laptop's password, and it has this text-only password prompt. I want to say this is the password that you normally enter to install an application that requires privileges in your normal macOS X. This is just a text-only password prompt. Now, when you type, it won't echo out any characters or anything, but it does accept it. So type in your password and press enter, and then it goes. It will install all the things: Brew, Git, the command line tools necessary for building applications. This will take a little while. It's a medium-sized download that has a kind of complicated installation process, but it shouldn't take more than several minutes. And these command line tools is all we're going to need in class. Alternatively, one could have downloaded and installed the full Xcode suite of developer tools, which includes things like Cocoa and Swift and C++ and a lot of other things for developing iOS and macOS X native applications. While these are interesting things to do, it's not what we're going to be doing, and we just need the minimal command line tools that Brew is triggering to install right now. And again, this installation will take just a few minutes. I'm not going to bother pausing the video because I do want you to see the full output as we go. It'll seemingly be stuck here, but it's really not stuck. It's just doing a lot of stuff without echoing out any process or telling us anything, but it's really going. I can really see the hard drive grinding. Okay, now the command line tools are installed. Now it's doing Brew itself, which actually, there's a lot of stuff there. but it's really not so bad. And Brew is downloading and installing stuff right now. And again, Brew is what's known as a package manager. And package manager is pretty much, you tell it, I want to go install these things, and it does it for you. And here we go. So we've got everything we need. Now let's go ahead and install PHP. Now, Brew by default doesn't have the newest versions of PHP in its repertoire, but it's pretty easy to do that. All you have to do is brew tap homebrew /php, and these commands here are actually in the web page that accompanies the screencast. And then that downloads the repository for the enabling of PHP. Now we just do brew install PHP 7.2. PHP 7.2 is the most recent as of the screencast. And it goes ahead and downloads and installs that. The PHP has several dependencies, but it downloads and installs pretty straightforward. And again, during pre-work, we're not really going to be using this immediately, but we will be in the future. So it's good to have all of our tools ready and installed for when you hit the ground in the classroom. Okay. The next thing we're going to install is something called Composer. Brew, install, Composer. Composer is actually kind of like Brew is a package manager for the macOS X tools. Composer is a package manager that we're going to be using in class for PHP tools. And speaking of package managers, one more called Node. Brew, install, Node, @8. So the @ sign means I want version 8. There is a version 9 out there. It's for cutting edge development. We're officially supporting 8 here instead of 9. 9 is kind of experimental. And 8 is the more stable version. Okay, good. Now all those have been installed. Again, we've installed the tool set that we're going to need for class right now. Might as well get everything installed and ready. The convenient thing again about using Brew is that it installs the command line tools that we need for us. All right, good. We can now set that aside and get back to the main theme of setting up Git and GitHub. So to connect to GitHub and to connect to CNM, we're going to need something called an SSH key. An SSH key is basically kind of like an ID card that you show to your employer or to state officials to identify who you are. There's kind of a private component information about yourself. You don't readily share with people, such as your Social Security or mother's maiden name or something like that. That's private. And then there's the public part, which is maybe your photo and your name and the fact that this ID exists. You'll acknowledge, hey, I carry a driver's license, I carry a passport. I mean, the very existence of these things is not private, but maybe the driver's license number and the passport number is. Anyway, to extend this metaphor, we're going to apply for a developer passport and get it right now. And then authorize the use of this to be able to interact with GitHub, which is a place where all of our code will be stored. It'll be a living, breathing, evolving portfolio for your developer career. And then CNM, which is, of course, where you'll be testing and debugging and hacking through your assignments in the class. So for that, we need a passport, or should we say an SSH key. To generate an SSH key, we type in SSH TAC keygen, TAC T for type. Now, what type do we want? We're going to use the ED 25519 type. ED 25519 is the latest and greatest in what's known as elliptic curve cryptography, which is essentially the fastest and most secure type of key out there. Now, okay, it says we're going to generate that key pair. What file do we want to save it? The default is fine. Should be at users, deep dive coder, or whatever your username on the laptop is, .ssh, and then IED _bar ED 25519. That's good. Now it asks for a passphrase. This passphrase is extremely important. Since, again, to extend our passport analogy here, since this is really important, as the key to all your developer travels, make this a really good password. Make this the best password you've ever invented, since this is the key to all security in the developer world. Including especially do not, for any excuses, under any circumstances, for any reason, repeat a password you've already used. This should be totally different. Write this down in a safe place, preferably in a password manager such as KeePass, Dashlane, or OnePass. And again, make this a really good password. And there we go. My identification has been saved here, and my public key here. So this is the private component. This private component, this file right here that's listed, you should share it with nobody. You should keep it a secret from your significant other and protect it using all necessary means. And then we have a public key. The public key acknowledges the existence of the private component, but reveals nothing private about you. And so the public key is just that. It can be posted anywhere. It can be emailed. It can be published on a web page. You could take out a Super Bowl ad with your public key on it. You'll be fine. And so what we want to do, we are going to be publishing and authorizing our public component soon. And if you get this little random image, it means you did it right. Okay. One little preliminary step, and we're going to go ahead and start using this. Preliminary step on SSH configuration is to go ahead and download a configuration file that we need. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to type in curl tac o /.ssh config, which means we're going to, curl is basically a command line web browser. It allows you to download stuff on the command line, and tac o means output, so I'm going to save it to my SSH config, my SSH configuration. And then I have a configuration file out there. It says bootcampcoders.cnm.edu screencast pre-work config. Okay, now what is actually in this file? I think a little explanation is in order. So, you can see that by going here. Here's what we have. Host star, which means every host out there. Add keys to agent and use keychain. That's what this is. The agent is more the Unix kind of Linux way of saving the keys. It's called an SSH agent. Use keychain is MacOS X. So this is basically syncing up SSH, which is fundamentally a Unix tool, not a Mac tool, and syncing up the Unix world agent and the Mac world use keychain. And then the identity file is going to be what we just created, SSH IED _ ED 25519. That's what that is. Okay, now that we have that configuration file downloaded, it is effective now. So now we can start using this key. But first things first, another preliminary. We're going to go to GitHub and sign up. Now again, Git. Git is a tool on the command line that allows developers to share code with one another. It's all about developers, written by developers for developers to keep their code in sync and collaborate on projects. GitHub is a service that allows you to use Git in a centralized place. You don't need to use GitHub in order to use Git. For instance, you could use Bitbucket instead of GitHub. GitHub is simply a hosting service, as is Bitbucket, and it is possible to actually use your own hosting or use no hosting and not have a host at all and still use Git. But we're going to use GitHub because it's popular, it's easy to use, and employers always look at your GitHub repositories and pulse to see what kind of coder you are. Again, GitHub is going to be kind of a evolving portfolio for yourself to show off to employers and to convince them to hire you. So let's go ahead and sign up. Now, since we have been talking a lot about employers, let's talk about the username for a second. The username should be easy to remember and shareable to employers. This should be something very professional and easily memorized by your employers. So whatever you choose here, make it professional. I do suggest using your first and last name somehow, but whatever, make it professional. All right, and go ahead and create the account. Also, I suggest that you use your C&M email to sign up for GitHub because there are some student benefits to having an educational email to your account. I am going to not create an account because, of course, I have one, so I'm going to go ahead and sign into my existing account. Okay, this is actually called TwoFactor Authentication. TwoFactor Authentication sends a code to my phone. And this is really good because in case somebody does get my password, they still need to also get my phone in order to be using my GitHub account. And that code's only good for 30 seconds. That's why I don't mind showing it on video because by the time I finish the sentence, that code's gone anyway. All right, cool. Now that we're signed up here, we can now add an SSH key. So, go to your profile settings by clicking right here and clicking settings, and then click SSH and GPG keys. And I have a lot of keys here, of course. You probably don't have any, but that's okay. You just click on New SSH Key here. And then just give it a name. I like to just call it the bootcamp key, I suppose. And then we'll need to paste in the key. Let's go ahead and copy it first, and then we can come back. So to paste it, actually, macOS X has this little neat little command called pbcopy > tilde /.ssh ID ed25519.pub. Make sure it's the pub and not the private key. Again, there's the private part and the public part. We only want to tell GitHub about the public part. And once you've done that, you come over here and you paste it in. This is what you should be seeing. You should be seeing SSH TAC ed25519, and then this comment's already kind of added. And then you add the SSH key. And then, right here, I can see that I've used it. All right, good. Now, let's do the same thing and tell CNM about it. So just log into the SSH key editor, and the URL for that is included with the screencast. Okay. And go ahead and paste it in here too. You add the SSH key, and there you go. You should see this in the table and SSH key added. Okay. Cool. We are ready to go. Now, let's go ahead and test and see how well our SSH keys are working out for us. To do that, return to the terminal. Let's go ahead and test CNM first. So, type in this command. This command is extremely important. You're going to be typing it all the time. You're going to need to know it. I want you to look yourself in the mirror every morning and repeat this command 10 times every morning until you have it memorized. If you're into tattoos, tattoo it on your forehead. This is an extremely repetitive command that we have to do all the time. To SSH in, type SSH space and then put in your CNM username at bootcamptechcoders.cnm.edu. Now, again, memorize that command. You're going to be typing that constantly. Now you get this one. The authenticity of this host cannot be established. This is normal for when you connect to a new server. You don't know about this server, so you can just type in yes. You have to type in yes, Y-E-S. Y will not be sufficient. It won't. It wants you to type in yes. Now it says enter the passphrase. Let's go ahead and do that. And there you go. You should have connected okay. Now, the entering of the passphrase should only happen once per lifetime of the key. The config file that we just downloaded via the command line using the CRL command should have handled that for us. You only need to do that once per lifetime. Let's make sure that this is presently true. So let's try SSHing again. We're currently connected to CNM, and any commands we write will be on CNM servers, not on our local Mac. We want to change that, so we need to exit from CNM. To do that, all we have to do is type, exit and press enter. Go ahead and type exit, press enter. It closes the connection, and you're back down to your local Mac. We need to connect again. We could type that command I told you, but that's doing it the hard way. The up arrow provides a list of everything we have typed. So we can just use the arrow keys to repeat the command. Now this time, the second time, we're testing to see that the keychain does have the passphrase in there and is able to connect without prompting for the passphrase again. And indeed, it works. Please make sure this works, because it is much more secure to authenticate with a key than typing a password. It is way more secure, and so we need to make sure that we're using key-based authentication. We'll exit one more time because we don't need to do anything now. We're just testing to make sure everything's set up for the subsequent screencast when we go to PHP Storm. Okay, good. Next, let's go ahead and test GitHub. So we're going to SSH git at github.com. Now, unlike CNM, this is static. You don't have to put a special username here. GitHub identifies you by the key you present. And so just go ahead and simply press enter here, and let's see what happens. Again, we get this question. This is again normal for when you connect for the first time to a server you've never connected to. So we type yes. Now, this is a little different. CNM, what we're providing you with is an environment to go ahead and manipulate your web environment and your web files up on the web server. So it's an open prompt for you to type in any Unix command. GitHub does not want to provide that for you because GitHub is trying to serve something else. And that's okay. So it's okay that we immediately were kicked out. This is the key phrase right here. We want to be successfully authenticated. So if you see this sentence that says, "Hi, your username, you've successfully authenticated, but GitHub does not provide shell access." That is good. As long as we see that one sentence, and you can ignore the little warnings up here. They're nothing. They're not relevant. As long as you see this sentence right here, we're good to go. Now, finally, we just have to do some final configurations on Git. What we have established for ourselves and what we've done is to install the tools and communicate to the two servers we're going to be using. CNM is where we're going to deploy our website and, debug and test all of the assignments that are done. GitHub is where we're going to synchronize our projects with our team members and, again, have an organic and continually evolving and growing portfolio of code. And now all we need to do is put a little more configuration on Git, and then we're good to go. So we're going to type git config /global user.name. Go ahead and just put your real name here in quotes. Don't forget the quotes, otherwise this won't work. You need quotes here. And go ahead and just put your name. Now the next thing is user.email. If you notice, actually, I did the up arrow and then edited the command. I highly suggest this. It really prevents a lot of mistyping because it's going to be the same thing repetitively. Git config /global, git config /global. Why not leverage up arrow for us? Go ahead and put your email. Again, for safety, quote this. Okay. Now, two more. The next is called pull.rebase. Pull.rebase, whenever you pull something down, whenever you request from GitHub, any code, we're going to do something called rebasing instead of merging. This is a somewhat complicated topic. It essentially comes down to rebase is the faster and simpler way compared to merge. Finally, push.default is going to be simple. Again, this is just a strategy on the git push command, and we're going to use the simple method, which again, kind of like rebase, we want just kind of the simplest way of doing things. Okay, now we have everything set up. Everything's running. We are ready to go with Git, and we we have installed Node and PHP, which will be used later in class. Even though we're not using those immediately, at least we have them nice and installed. You're now ready to proceed to the next screencast, where we will set up an example web project and use PHP Storm itself.